Hello, I am back. I took a little hiatus there because life. My kids and I have been sick for like a month straight, and my husband was traveling, and all of that just really took a lot out of me. I was desperately trying to squeeze out a video on schedule, but my brain just wasn't cooperating, and I burnt myself out. But I am ready to get back on the horse, so I shelved the video that I was originally working on that was Destroying My Will to Live, and today instead I'm going to be defending The Mummy 2017. I'm also filming outside because I didn't want to clean my house, so hopefully none of my neighbors hear me because I will die of embarrassment. So, The Mummy happened almost 10 years ago, a movie that was meant to kick off the Dark Universe, which never really happened because, well, people just didn't really like it. I, however, was not one of those people. It actually took me a long time to learn that people didn't like this movie. My husband and I actually went to go see it in theaters, and it was the first time that we had left our puppy home alone. Now, this guy. And I spent the whole time stressing about how he was doing, but even with all that going on, I was still able to enjoy the movie. I wasn't really sure on the specifics of why people didn't like it. I just kept on hearing it brought up that it was bad without much else said about it. But I did try to do some research and I dug up a couple things, a couple vague things that people didn't really enjoy. So let's get into it. So, one of the things I've heard is that The Mummy had a scattered script and that the movie couldn't really decide what it wanted to be. It seems like it's supposed to be this dark, serious movie, but then they keep on throwing comedy in there.
Jenny?
Now, I personally never really got the feeling this was supposed to be a dark, serious movie. I mean, it was dark, but it wasn't like dark. It is a bit darker and a bit more grounded than, say, the Brendan Fraser mummy movies, but ultimately it's still a mummy movie. And the tone definitely never struck me as odd. To me, it's very reminiscent of Curse of the Black Pearl. You know, it has this dark mythology to it, but at its core, it's still very much a comedy. I feel like I'm going to catch a lot of heat for saying that. I'm not saying that it's as good as Pirates, it's just the same type. It has the same vibe, if you will. As for the script, it really never felt scattered to me. I wish I could find more specifics on how people thought it felt scattered, but I really only found vague complaints. Honestly, this movie feels very cohesive to me. You have the main plot with a little extra side plot over here surrounding the League, but everything is working together to move the overall story forward. There aren't any scenes that bore me or that feel like a waste of time. It may not be Oscar worthy, but I don't see any glaring problems here either. Maybe I'm just not critical enough. I don't know. Something else that some people seem to have a problem with is the character of Jenny. I watched Chris Stuckman's review, which obviously now is super old, but he pointed out that the movie came out at the same time as Wonder Woman, and in comparison to Wonder Woman, Jenny comes across very much as just a damsel in distress.
Jenny, you can do this. You can do this.
But here's the thing Wonder Woman is Wonder Woman. Jenny is an archaeologist. Does it really seem fair to compare the two? Now, Jenny might not be a girl boss, but she's still smart and tough, and she can keep up with Tom Cruise, which is pretty badass in my opinion. Annabelle Wallace is actually one of the few people who was able to run on screen with Tom Cruise. She really wanted to do a running scene with him, and he initially said no because he's Tom Cruise and he's freaking fast. But she wanted it so bad that she would try and be on the treadmill whenever she knew he was going to be around so that he would see her run. And she won him over and she got her running scene. I actually remember watching that scene and thinking, damn, that woman can run. And the story behind it just makes it extra cool in my book. So, in my opinion, calling Jenny a damsel in distress is entirely unfair. In fact, considering that she's an archaeologist and not in the military like Tom's character Nick, I think she holds her own better than to be expected, perhaps even unrealistically so. And to be fair, Nick also gets the crap beat out of him a fair bit in this movie. Another complaint I've heard is that this movie was meant to be launching a cinematic universe, the Dark Universe. Universal was planning on updating several monster movies in this cinematic universe, like Dracula, The Invisible Man, and The Creature from the Black Lagoon. In this movie, along with The Mummy, we of course have Russell Crowe as Jekyll and Hyde, who I thought was a delight in the role, but there are a lot of people saying that they felt like he was just phoning it in.
What? What?
It has been said that The Mummy was too focused on laying the groundwork for this cinematic universe than being a movie on its own. And again, I have to disagree. I think this movie functions perfectly as a standalone film. The ending did leave me excited for more movies, but I never felt like it was just a setup for more movies. To be honest, the first several times I watched this, I had no idea that it was meant to be part of something larger. Yes, they have that intro with the dark universe, whatever, but it just never really clicked in my brain. Like I said earlier, I didn't feel like there was a lot of wasted time in this movie. There is a bit of exposition, but that's necessary for anything that's functioning in a realm other than our reality. The world and the history needs to be explained, and that's something that's not specific to movies that are part of larger universes. Of course, there is a right way and a wrong way to set up history and lore, and this movie falls somewhere in the middle. They did a decent amount of telling and not showing, but not enough so that it annoyed me. That's one of the things that's holding this script back from being something great, but it's also not the abomination that people are making it out to be. I would also like to specify that I take the show don't tell rule more seriously when it comes to things like character development or character choices, and less so when it comes to things like world building. Sometimes you just want to get into the movie, and the fastest way to set the stage is by just having a good old fashioned exposition dump. And I'm not mad about it. Now, I did watch this video that explained why The Mummy wasn't a good launch for the Dark Universe, and I do think they made a very good point regarding Tom Cruise's character Nick. Nick doesn't become the Mummy until the very end of the movie, so 99% of the time that we spend with this character, he's just Nick. And yet, in the grand scheme of this universe, he's supposed to be the Mummy. And this movie was supposed to be getting us excited to see the Mummy, mixing it up with all these other big bads in future movies. So the problem lies in that Nick wasn't unique enough as a character in order for us to want to see him with all the other monsters in this universe. He was just a dude that got thrown into a crazy situation and ended up becoming something supernatural in the end. In the very end. And as a standalone movie, this is fine. Obviously, I still really like this movie and I like the character of Nick. It just failed to spark a desire for a greater cinematic universe in the audience. Now, here is where I think a lot of the bad reviews are really coming from. People are comparing it to the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies. A lot of people grew up on those movies and they hold a special place in their hearts. I didn't watch them until I was a bit older, but I still really enjoy them. They're campy, but oh so charming. And I think instead of judging The Mummy 2017 as something on its own, people feel like Universal has taken something beloved to them and ruined it. And I get this feeling about being bitter over remakes, but something that I think gets kind of lost in the bitterness is that just because a remake exists doesn't mean that the original is going anywhere, or that it's any less great. Don't like the remake? That's okay. The original that you love is still there waiting for you. I also feel like this was not a remake of the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies. It was a reimagining of the classic Mummy tale. But people have such a strong association with the title The Mummy that Universal really shot themselves in the foot here. So yeah, ultimately, I was really surprised that this movie was received so poorly, and I never really understood why. After reading some reviews, people seem to talk about all the things that were good about it, and then drop a couple vague criticisms like, the script felt unfocused. Okay, how? It wasn't a good standalone movie. Okay, how? Feels like people are mad that it wasn't more like the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies, and they're being unfairly harsh to it because of that. Or they're cinema buffs who can no longer enjoy a simple classic action adventure movie because everything needs to be a work of art in order to get their stamp of approval. At the end of the day, this is a movie that I personally revisit frequently because I like it so much. It's not a masterpiece by any means, but it is just a fun, well put together movie, in my opinion, that brings me joy to watch. So who really cares what everyone else thinks? Anywho, those are my thoughts on The Mummy 2017. I would love to hear what you thought about it down below. If you've made it this far, please give this video a like. I also want to give a really big thank you to everyone who has subscribed. I hit 33 subscribers on my last video, which I know in the YouTube universe is really small, but to me it's a really big deal. And I am so glad to have all of you here. If you're not subscribed and you love movies as much as we all do, then you should really consider hitting that button.